Welcome to my Magical Illustrations series. This is the first episode in a series about drawing with a magical or fantasy theme. I came up with this character whilst I was sitting in a cafe. I happened to have my sketchbook with me, and I saw some plants I wanted to sketch in the nursery just outside the cafe, and it just evolved from there. And that's why it's quite important if you do any sort of drawing to try and keep a sketchbook with you, because you just never know where inspiration is going to hit you. I start with the dark areas first, just to increase the contrast and give the character more three-dimensional form. Here I'm concentrating on Gecko's face as it's the central focal point of the image. I like working with a few layers in Photoshop. I set them to multiply, a bit like how it works when I'm drawing freehand, because it gradually builds up the darker areas and I can see what I'm doing at the same time. The same applies for when I put colour in. I'll set the colour layer to multiply just so I can see what I'm doing. Of course you can use other effects as well, but I like keeping it quite simple to start off with. With the colour, I started with the eyes first. Gecko I wanted to have owl-like eyes, so I added gold tones on a different layer and set the layer to multiply. Next I add warm colours, a nice warm red to the mouth and around the nose and to key areas on the body. Next I use the gradient tool. I just used this particular tool as opposed to the brush, so that I have a more varied, diffuse light over the skin tones. Once again, setting the layer to multiply and then working different warm colours into the skin, trying to vary it from place to place so that it's not the same all over. I try to keep the colours quite simple and subtle, because when I'm finished, I'm wanting to put the whole image over a creamy background. Here I'm adding some pink to her skin tones, using the gradient tool to add it to her face, mostly her cheeks and her ears, but also to her shoulders, parts of her hand that you can see. And then what I'm going to do is use the brush tool and put some green in over her clothing, just trying to keep in mind that there'll be a creamy overlay over all of it, and that will influence the end colour as well. So the main tools I've used in doing this illustration from the Photoshop point of view is using a gradient tool, a brush tool, and setting my layers to multiply to build up the colour layer upon layer. Thanks for watching.